This conference will now be recorded.
It's 6 p.m. on Monday, May 4th, 2020. This is a regular scheduled meeting of the Humphreys County Commission Administrative Committee. It's being conducted by electronic means in accordance with Governor Bill Lee's Executive Order number 16. A recording of this meeting can be accessed on May 5th at the Humphreys County Government Facebook page. Chairman Ronnie Hughes is presiding. I'll call the roll. Mr. Dillinger?
Here.
Phillips?
Here.
Mr. Wagner?
Here.
Ms. Hampton?
Here.
Mr. Jarrett?
Here.
Mr. Mayberry?
Here.
Mr. Hughes?
Here.
Mr. Rochelle?
Here.
Mr. Hurt?
Here. Here.
Mr. Daniel?
Here.
Mr. Whitfield?
Here.
Mr. Hunt?
Here.
Mr. Coleman?
Here.
Mr. Hooper?
Here.
Very good. All members present. Ms. Hughes, I turn the meeting over to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all for being able to attend. The first item of business we have is the minutes from the April 6th meeting. Give you a moment to look those over.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
did Mr. Wallace not going to present us with something first?
I took care of that, Mr. Daniel.
Is there any objection to the minutes? All in favor say aye. Thank you. The next item is the approval of the financial report for the month of March. Give you a moment to look those over. Is there any questions or concerns? If hearing none, they will go on as approved. The first item we have is the school assistance budget. Mr. Rollins, are you available?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Good. You should have before you the general purpose budget, which is about 23 pages long, and then you have the federal budget and school nutrition budget. And in the room with me right now, Mr. Hughes and Commissioners, is Mr. Rye, who is the next director of school, Mr. Richard Rye, and also Mr. Robert Martin is in the room with me. I would like to add, and I'm going to jump ahead. The lights have evidently went off here a couple of times, and if I jump ahead a little bit to the school board budget amendments, in case the lights go off, but I'll go ahead and finish up on the fiscal year first. And Mr. Hughes, I'll be glad to go through it page by page. But what I would like to add is that we have a lot of unknowns on our budget right now. And if I could just add for a moment, we kind of know what property tax is, but I think Mr. Wallace is still unsure about the value of the penny right now. But we got kind of an estimate from him. And then a couple of weeks ago, we got our BEP estimate that came in, and we get a March, and we get an April, and an April, May, June, and a July, a final one. And they don't vary a lot. Our enrollment pretty well stays the same. And as far as going from April to May, June, and July, The way the state figures it up, it won't vary a few students. And then that's the main thing that determines how much money we get from the state is student enrollment. There is some special ed numbers that go in there and CTE numbers and direct serve, but most of it is based on your student enrollment from this year that we just finished up right now. And another unknown here for us is that we've already got the 20 days through 60, which is referred to as period 2 and period 3. Of course, that was back in the fall and late summer. That's already determined. What's unknown for us is how they're going to do the 6th and 7th. I keep hearing two different things. One is because we wasn't in school during the 7th, that they're going to multiply 6 times 2 and come up with that. And the 6th and 7th are your big ones. That's one that determines how you get most of your money. But anyway, from the BEP standpoint, we were able to, from the state, collect $15.5 million. And one of the things that helped us there this year was the fiscal capacity decreased enough that if it had been the same fiscal capacity we had last year, the same numbers, it's $250,000 difference. Because it did go down, the state paid more this year. It enabled us to accumulate around $247,146. But on page 1 of the general purpose is that you got the estimate of $3,933,000 from 468 that Mr. Wallace gave us. The sales tax is a great unknown. As you well know, we've all kind of experienced what that might be like, all the way back to having to give back $1 million to the state that Mr. Wallace so graciously saved us on the TVA money. But anyway, if that continued the way it is, the way it's gone so far, and nobody knows what the next 3 months are going to be like with the economy the way it is. And then the other unknown we have is salaries. We're hoping to give as much as we can to teachers, which directly affects all employees. If a teacher gets a pay raise, all support people get a pay raise. So it's a formula that kicks in. And back before COVID-19 or the coronavirus, the governor was advocating a 4% pay raise, 4.2, 4% pay raise for teachers. And then, of course, everything went south after the coronavirus. He and the comptroller readjusted and withdrew it down to 2%. But back when he said 4%, he said he wanted the minimum pay for BS degree teacher with no years experience to be $38,000, and our beginning pay is $36,000. So we won't know that. We won't. I'm just guessing. I've tried to find out from the head person in Nashville that deals with this particular aspect of minimum salary. And she says wait until the state board meets in May, and they may tell us in May, and they may tell us in June. And basically the governor will say, okay, I recommended $38,000. For us, that would mean a $2,000 pay raise for teachers if it stayed at 38. And then with that 38, it would be us not knowing what sales tax is. It would be kind of as close as you can get on the budget you see before you. There's not much room for play. And if I might add, we don't know what the enrollment will be. If you're Mr. Rye, you've got to kind of anticipate what next year may bring. And if he can reach in a crystal ball and figure out what August is going to bring, if we're in school in August, but if he can figure out what's going to take place there, I'm worried about parents being scared of their children coming back to school. I hope not. We're going to try to make it safe, but at the same time, homeschool may come into the picture a little bit during that time. Now, the other thing we don't know about last year, one of the things that we were able to help on our not spending money was there was absolutely no increase in medical insurance. Now we know there is going to be an increase in medical insurance. You know, last year is one of the few times I remember medical insurance not increasing, but we know that I think the dates, May the 21st, the state's going to tell us what the increase in insurance is going to be, and this is going to be a 2-year hit instead of a 1-year hit. I hope it's small, but if it is, we got to absorb it because all we get is $7,236 per teacher of the ones that we qualify. Now, I'm sorry for all that, but I kind of want to give you a general impression of what we were going through. And Mr. Hughes, I'll be glad to go through this general purpose budget any way you want me to right now.
Well, I thank you, Mr. Rollins. Is there any preference from the commissioners on how you want to proceed? I know this is unprecedented times and it's an unusual situation, but whatever y'all wish to do. Any comments?
I'm going to take
Mr.
it, Mr.
Hughes?
John.
Yes,
Go
sir.
ahead, Mr.
Mr. Hunt?
Yes, I'm going to say we need to leave it. I read the whole thing this week pretty well, and I'd like to just leave it like it. Take Mr. Rollins' word for it and accept it as is.
Are you making that recommendation?
Yes.
I'll second it.
And Mr. Coleman? We have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions or concerns?
Who was the second?
Jim Jared.
Thank you, Mr. Jarrett.
If there's nothing else, Mr. Wallace, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Coleman. Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Dillinger?
Yes.
Ms. Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Mr. Hurt?
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes,
Mayberry? Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes, that vote was unanimous, and without objections, it'll be included in the budget that's presented for adoption at our special call meeting in June.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wallace and Commissioners, is there any reason why we have Mr. Rollins on the phone that we can't go down to resolutions, the school board budget amendment? Is there any precedent against that, Mr. Wallace, or do you know?
No, sir. Without objection.
Is there any objection from the Commissioners? Hearing none. Mr. Rollins, are you still with us?
Yes, sir.
Would you like to go over your amendments and appropriations for us?
Yes, sir. On this first one, 72-120-499, coordinated school health. This is a grant money where we get $100,000. This does not come out of BEP money or anything. It's strictly a grant that is written here at the board office that takes care of coordinated school health. And it's one of these funds that if you don't spend it, you have to send it back to the state. And all we've done there is taken $7,013.36 other salaries. We actually combined a salary out of her secretary and absorbed another position here at the board office and increased it in supplies. The next one is pre-K, early childhood education. And this is another one that if you don't spend it, you have to send it all back to the state. This is where Dr. Mott runs this program. It's 6 pre-K teachers that we have in the county. It tries to match up an online platform that we have that she has to put everything in that she spends into what's referred to as E-Plan. And this has already been monitored by the state and approved by the state. And if you look there at 73,400,105, where it says increase in supervisor director, she's not getting any more increase than what she gets paid for doing that job. She gets $4,000 out of the pre-K funds to be a pre-K supervisor. This has been going on ever since, well, I assume ever since the program's been established. And then the last one is a grant that was written by Miss Christy Brown, another coordinator of school health, in which she wrote a grant for $20,000, and she's buying, and it's been approved, and she's buying equipment for playground equipment for our schools. And then last is I'm asking is that we transfer $200,000 out of our fund balance. And the reason for this, and this is put roofs on. We're doing a major roofing project this spring. We're combining what we were supposed to have done this year, what we were supposed to have done over the last couple of years ago. And if you remember correctly, 2 years ago, we took that money from roofing and fixed a problem at McEwen Junior High where we were having structural problems, where we had 44 helical piers put into that building, and so far it's done what we thought it would do. Don't want to jinx us, but because we delayed it that year, we had to come back and double up on all of our roofs right now. And I'll be glad to answer any questions from Mr. Hughes, commissioners.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Is there any questions for Mr. Rollins? Mr. Rollins, has the school board already approved these amendments and appropriations?
Yes, sir. Everything that's before you, the school board has approved it. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. If there's no objections, Mr. Wallace?
Move on to the vote. Mr. Coleman.
Yes, sir.
Daniel.
Yes, sir.
Dillinger.
Yes.
Hanson.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Burt.
Yes.
Jared.
Yes.
Mayberry.
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Rochelle.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Whitfield.
Yes.
Action is approved, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Appreciate your working out on this, and we'll see you next Monday, hopefully, at our regular commission meeting.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the next item on other business is Sheriff's Department budget.
Just hang up.
Mr. Hunt, Mr. Hughes, Commissioner
Yes.
Hunt requested a review of the sheriff's proposed budget on occasion of our budget workshop on April 6th.
Right.
The sheriff's on the line with us, and if, with your permission, Mr. Hughes, I'll yield the floor to Mr. Hunt.
Okay.
Yes, I talked to the sheriff about it, and he straightened me out on what I needed to know.
Mr. Wallace, if I may, I'll add to that. One of the questions that he had was about the 170 line item. I just want to be very transparent to all the commissioners, and I apologize for having to do this by phone, but I want to be very transparent on that. And if you look at the 170 line item in the Sheriff's Department budget, you'll see the amendments there, and over to the right where it has new. Those amendments were when when the school board was going to add those two new SROs, and we had went ahead at the same time and was trying to walk those two together, and naturally that got killed by Ed Commission, and naturally that's when I had asked for that to be removed. And however, those figures have to stay in place. So that's why those figures are there. But if you'll come out and look at the right side of that into the 170, that is a 3% increase, just like we were doing for normal.
Thank you, Sheriff. Is there any other questions for Sheriff Davis?
Mr. Hughes his other question was about the one line item. I believe it was in the I want to say it was the overtime line item. That was the part due to that being that federal fiscal year, and that's when we had made those changes on the federal fiscal year. So that's the reason for that line item as well.
Mr. Hughes, there's no action needed here.
Did I lose you guys?
No, I'm here.
Mr. Hughes. Mr. Hughes, the floor is yours.
Yes, sir. The next item is contribution and dues. Mr. Wallace.
Yes, sir. During the workshop, some of you expressed a desire to review the proposed 2020-21 contribution list. You have that in your packet. They're basically the same as they were last year, with the exception of a slight reduction in the Mid-Cumberland Human Resource Agency fees. I'll answer any questions or respond to any concerns.
Is there any questions for Mr. Wallace? Okay, moving on to the resolutions. First resolution we have is the ratification of private acts.
Yes, sir. Introduced by Senator Kerry Roberts and sponsored by House Representative Jay Reedy. The General Assembly has approved the abolishment of the Humphreys County Private Act that established the juvenile court in Humphreys County to be effective at the end of the current term or at such time as there exists a vacancy in that office. It just ratifies the action.
Okay. Is there any questions? How about a roll call, Mr. Wallace?
Certainly. Mr. Coleman.
Yes, sir.
Daniel.
Yes.
Dillinger.
Yes.
Hampton.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Burt.
Yes.
Jared. Mayberry.
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Rochelle.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Whitfield.
Yes.
The action is approved.
Thank you. The next item is the Planning Commission appointments.
This reappoints Raymond Brown, Clarence Duncan, Ray Gentry, Sam Reynolds, and Eddie Rochelle to new terms ending May 31, 2024.
Is there any questions?
Were there any new appointments?
No new appointments, reappointments, each one. Mr. Jared.
Is there any other questions? Roll call, Mr. Wallace, please.
Coleman,
Yes, sir.
Daniel,
Yes.
Dillinger,
Yes.
Hampton,
Yes.
Hooper,
Yes.
Hughes,
Yes.
Hunt,
Yes.
Hurt.
Yes.
Jared,
Yes.
Mayberry,
Yes.
Phillips,
Yes.
Rochelle,
I need to pass on that one, don't
no, sir.
I? Okay, yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Whitfield.
Yes.
Action is approved.
Thank you. The next item we have is volunteer sand and gravel. Mr. Wallace.
This was introduced by Mr. Whitfield and addressed at the last full meeting of the commission. The action is being reconsidered. The action being reconsidered is a voice of opposition to the mining operation proposed for the area along the Duck River and Highway 13 South. I would recommend yielding the floor to Mr. Whitfield.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes, sir. I, along with several of other commissioners, listened into the TDEC web-based meeting the other night, and it seemed like there were 50 people that did speak in opposition to it, and in concern of pollution in the area. I also know there were a few that weren't local. They were with different groups, but by and large, it was folks on Duck River that had these concerns. You know, if there's a problem with the wording on this resolution, we could change that. I just need to know what it is. I'd like to see this untabled. Guess that's all,
Yeah,
Mr. Wallace.
Yes, sir. It's up for consideration and action by the committee. Thank you.
Mr. Whitfield, there at the conference, what was your take on that?
Well, everyone that spoke was opposed to it. There was no one really speaking for it at that. PDEC has a plan in hand. They were going to make their decision, or they were going to end comment, I think, on May the 8th.
Were your concerns answered to your satisfaction?
They were no sort. They really just noted the concerns. And, you know, they may consider some of it. They didn't give any feedback really as to the statements that were being made.
Okay. Is there any other comments from any other commissioner?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I spoke, you know, they're against it, and I may be putting apples and oranges together, but I don't know if how many went out there and looked at that. Awful lot of good farmland that is fixing to be used, and I know I spoke against this resolution just for some employment for some truck drivers, which are still driving right now, and you know, I mean, it's thinking outside the box, I guess, but you know, there's a lot of sand and gravel and everything in these creeks that, you know, I don't know why we couldn't go and get that, but that's I had a couple of more calls this weekend, so that's why I just kind of I expressed wrong there other last month, but a few people reached out to me that seem like know what they're talking about, and so I mean, are we doing it? What's best for the county overall? Tearing up all that farmland, or you know, but you're never going to get it back.
It's supposed to be reclaimed.
Say that again.
Once the operation is finished, the land is supposed to be reclaimed where it is now.
Is there any other questions?
Mr. Hughes,
Yes, sir.
for benefit of the recording and for the taking of the minutes, everyone who chooses to speak, make a comment, or ask a question, can you please lead with identifying yourself, just your last name, whatever you feel inclined to do. Thank you.
Does anyone else have any comments?
Mr. Hughes, this is Ricky Hooper.
Yes, sir.
Are they putting tailings back into the river? Are they putting dirty water back into the river? Or what are they actually doing? What is the process?
Mr. Whitfield, can you answer that?
When the water, Duck River runs over the 7-foot berm wall, it's going to wash whatever they're doing in that 100-acre pond out. That's what the local folks are worried about. That's not so much what TDEC is worried about. They're just worried about the manner in which the operation is started, that sort of thing.
Just for my knowledge, what is the difference between, I've seen that bottom flooded several times. What's the difference between it being flooded with corn in it and it is been flooded with a pond?
So they're going to dredge about 40 feet deep or so. They're going to be making a slurry inside of that pond. And no one is real sure what they're going to hit when they dig down that far in that big an area.
Okay, and who is going to be in charge of that it does get reclaimed if you dig 40 feet out, like 40 feet back at some point in time? Who's going to be in charge of that's happening someday?
I guess the owner. And really said what they're going to build in.
But really, this is just an opinion from us. We have no standing in the process. Is that correct?
Yes, I was just asking for us to speak up for our residents in the area that had concerns about it.
Okay, thank you.
Is there any other questions? If not, Mr. Wallace?
Yes, sir. I'll take a vote. Without objection, Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
For point of clarification, the resolution before us will be sent on to the full commission, and if approved, will be sent in opposition. Our opinion of the proposed operation expressed to TDEC in opposition. So,
Mr. Wallace, if I get this correct, a yes vote is in favor of the against the sand and gravel, and no would be for this or against this resolution?
Yes, sir. A yes vote is an expression of opposition to the proposed enterprise.
Okay. Is there any other questions?
Mr. Coleman, is your
Hearing
vote?
none.
Yes, sir. I'm voting for the resolution.
Yes. Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Dillinger?
No.
Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
No.
Mr. Hunt?
No.
Mr. Hurt?
No.
Mr. Jared?
No.
Mayberry?
No.
Ms. Phillips?
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
No.
Mr. Whitfield?
Yes.
Action fails to receive the majority vote necessary to be recommended to the full commission. Measure fails.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is R.J. Young Company.
Mr. Hughes, this is for the Register of Deeds office, would secure a new copying machine from R.J. Young by lease at $114 a month, which is less than what they're paying now.
Is there any comments or questions? Ms. Wallace, roll call, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Dillinger?
Yes.
Hampton?
Yes.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Hurt?
Yes.
Mr. Jerry?
Yes.
Mayberry?
Yes.
Phillips?
Yes.
Rochelle?
Yes.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield?
Yes.
Action is approved.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is a cruise property purchase. Mr. Wallace.
At this time, Mr. Hughes, without objection, I'll make report from the recent jail facility subcommittee meeting, which took place today at 4:30 p.m., in which this item was discussed and recommended to approve the measure before the administrative committee.
Do I see Yes, sir.
In detail, the property, this is a proposed purchase of the property adjacent to where we hope to build the new jail, adjacent to the PAP property, and is available at purchase for $90,000 to turn us loose on the improvements we need to make in order to proceed with the project.
Okay, this takes in all that hillside there?
The PAP property consists of 22 plus acres, and this is a 5-acre parcel that lies just to the south of the PAP property. The issue is that the access to this cruise property is through the PAP property currently, as are the utility services running through that property. This would give us an opportunity to move forward with the project and not be concerned with relocating all those utilities. We probably put this property back on the market at some point after we get finished with the jail construction.
Okay. Is there any questions for Mr. Wallace or the jail committee? Hearing none, Mr. Wallace, roll call, please.
Coleman.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Daniel.
Yes.
Mr. Dillinger.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Hampton.
Yes.
Mr. Hooper.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
Mr. Hunt.
Yes.
Burt.
Yes.
Mr. Jared.
Yes.
Mayberry.
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle.
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Action is approved.
Thank you. The last item we have on resolutions is notaries.
Yes. This approves applications or recommends applications from Patricia Linville, Lisa Jones, and Robert Thomason.
Is there any questions or concerns? Roll call, Mr. Wallace.
Coleman.
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Dillinger.
Yes.
Hampton.
Yes.
Hughes.
Yes.
Hunt.
Yes.
Burt.
Yes.
Jared.
Yes.
Mayberry.
Yes.
Phillips.
Yes.
Rochelle.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Whitfield.
Yes.
Action is approved. Thank you. The next item is new business. Is there any new business that's come before this committee at this time?
I've got something, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
It's a big one. It's time for us to have, given where we're at with the adoption of the fiscal year budget 2021, and with the applications made for loans with the USDA for construction of the jail project and the school building project, time we started talking about funding the debt service incumbent upon that debt service, and assuming continuation of the jail project, the eventual hiring of 10 additional correction officers. I'll begin by telling you, and I'll try to be as brief as I can. We've got a storm in the area, and if I assume if my power gets knocked off, this call ends, and we may have to reestablish. But we need to move forward with what we want to do in terms of answering this debt that we probably may be at least we'll probably be considering the contract for. I begin by telling you that tax rate right now is subject to change. We were in a reappraisal year 3 years ago, and because of fluctuations in average sales price for property in Humphreys County, the state board of property assessment has decided to do a mini reappraisal, and that's going to result in a change of the certified tax rate. We can't make any money on it, so that if property values increase, which I assume they're going to, then the certified rate will be lower than what it is now. So any changes we propose to make to the tax rate for the next fiscal year will have to be adjusted once we have the new certified rate. So it'll be the equivalent of what it is now and the increase that we need to make. So the tax rate today is outside the municipalities is 2.0328 and inside is 1.9891. The tax rate needed to meet the debt service on the school project is 18 pennies, rounded slightly up, and that's an estimate on the actual cost of that debt service. I'm estimating $860,260 annually. And to meet that, it will require 18 cents in property tax. The jail building program, roughly 12 cents increase. 10 corrections officers, roughly 8 cents increase or the equivalent. And if while we're in the business of raising taxes, we've avoided the absolute necessity of raising the fire tax. Now, fire tax is not charged to people who live inside the municipalities, and that's the reason for that local option tax that goes to fund the fire system. Yeah, that's the reason the outside rate's higher than the inside rate, about 4 3/4 cents right now, and I'm recommending we raise the equivalent of 4 pennies, buy some much needed equipment. So by funding both these projects, we're looking at the equivalent increase to bring the rate to 2.4528 for outside and 2.3691 for inside.
Mr. Wallace.
Hunt.
John Hunt. I would like to make us a little here. I've been putting some figures to a lot of things, and we don't need this tax rate combined with both of these subjects at one time. And ever what it was for the jail, I would like to see that go. Then go back to the school and put a wheel tax of $75 on that with the people that we've got in here. A lot of people doesn't realize what we're doing with a sales tax, and I mean the regular tax. We're getting 60% of us are paying all the taxes. 40% are freeloaders. And if we go to a wheel tax of $75, that covers everybody in this county and everybody else that buys a tag. And we got a lot of people coming in here from Dixon County and everywhere else buying our tags because it's a cheap. And figuring just what the Miss Cindy gave me the numbers on that thing, that will give us, without any addition, $1.2 million to go against the school system. The school system is going to be here from now on, not because of McEwen School. We've got a lot of other projects that have to be going. And so I like to make a recommendation that we put a wheel tax on for the school system.
Well, a wheel tax. A wheel tax is as we've discussed on many occasions, the methods by which a wheel tax can be adopted, assuming a supermajority vote of 10 or more commissioners at the next full commission meeting, a wheel tax measure could be would need to be considered again at the following month. So we would vote on that at the May meeting and again at the June meeting before it could be adopted. Now, once adopted, we have to give 30 days for petitioners to gather signatures of 382 or more registered voters that would force a referendum. Too late for the August referendum, so we're looking at November for that to take place. Unfortunately, if it is forced to referendum and the referendum fails, then the funding won't be in place for the debt service on the projects. We won't be able to set the tax rate after the month of August. So the only way that I can conceive that we could move forward with what you're suggesting, Mr. Hunt, is for us to go forward with what we need in terms of a property tax, and then also adopt by including that in the budget, and also adopt a resolution at the next meeting to impose a wheel tax. And then if it's not forced to referendum, then we can go back and amend in August the tax rate, which includes property tax for the school project. If it is forced to referendum, then we can establish a time of implementation of the wheel tax a year down the road, and then roll that property tax back. I know that's a lot to absorb, and I apologize for the complexity of it, but it is what it is, given the timing of where we're at now in the planning stage for the next fiscal year, and the opportunities for referendum that come up, and the requirements for adopting a wheel tax. That's the only way I see to do it.
Mr. Wallace, this is Mr. Coleman.
Mr. Coleman?
Mr. Wallace?
Yes, sir.
I would rather see the wheel tax go for the total debt, both the jail and the school, and the fire tax.
Well, I don't think it could be imposed for the fire tax.
Well, both the jail and the school.
Well, we're looking at a wheel tax of about $110.
Not total. I'm not talking about that, Mr. Wallace. I'm talking about combining it with a smaller property tax increase.
Well, that's up to you folks. You can split those revenue sources up any way that you can conceive. The rules for establishing it's still the same. Mr. Hughes, I yield the floor.
Okay. Do you want to take this one at a time, the schools first, and then the jail, and then, or lump them all together?
We don't have a proposal on the floor.
Okay.
In order to move forward, and we need to move forward tonight, somebody needs to make a recommendation in terms of what revenue sources you wanna move forward with.
I'll make that promotion right there with what I told you a while ago.
For the $75 wheel tax for
Yes.
the schools?
Goes for the schools, yes.
And what about the jail?
It'd be our property tax, every what he told us, what was it, 12 cents?
Yes, sir, but we need to,
This
without,
plus the fire, yes.
yeah, and also I don't think we can move forward with the school with the way I understand your resolution. That doesn't guarantee funding for the school building program. In order to guarantee that funding, we need to go ahead and adopt a property tax levy equal to the debt service for that project that could be adjusted back depending on what happens with this referendum, if it happens at all.
Well, let me ask something else. If we set our mind that we're going to build that school, has that been approved? Right now?
No, sir. No, sir. There has not been a definitive commitment that I can recall.
That's the way I thought, and of course we can back this thing up until this referendum goes, and then we can start the school if it passes.
There has been an approval of the application of the loan.
Right.
But that there's no commitment to the USDA yet on that, pending approval of the application and the presentation of an agreement that would engage us to them.
I hope we don't lose each other, because I'm sitting here looking back to the west, and it's looking bad.
Oh, it's raining pretty good down there in Jayville right now.
Yeah, I can't even see Johnsonville now.
So, Mr. Hunt, does your motion include or not a levy of the tax rate to cover the debt service for the school?
Yes.
It does?
It does. I don't, no tax rate, no tax. Just the wheel tax goes to it.
Very good.
It supports the whole thing for the school system.
Mr. Hughes, there's a motion on the floor.
Right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Ms. Hampton?
Yes.
To move forward with the $75 wheel tax for the schools?
Yes.
And that alone, and not the jail?
Yes.
Is that your recommendation or your proposal, Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
For the schools only?
And that's the school only. That will take care of us on the school. Where he approached something like $900,000 a year, this will give us 1.2. Like I said before, this will go on. The school system's going to continue to go on years after years. And so that's the reason I like it. Go toward the schools, because we know the money will be there through a wheel tax.
Okay.
Yeah. Mr. Hughes, may I make a stab at phrasing the motion that Mr. Hunt's making?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Hunt proposes a $75 wheel tax, proceeds of which would go to fund school building programs now and in the future. And his motion also includes the 12-cent levy for the jail building program, 8-cent levy for correction officers, 4-cent outside rate for fire fund. Is that correct, Mr. Hunt?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second, Mr. Hughes.
Okay. One question. If either one of these fail, are we in jeopardy of the jail program or being in jeopardy of any ramifications from the state or the federal if this does not pass?
The consensus is, and the sheriff I don't know if he's still on here or not, but the consensus is, well-discussed and confirmed consensus is that we have a gross overcrowding problem with the jail. Historically, this has resulted, when unanswered and with no effort to resolve the problem, has resulted in the state fire marshal closing the facility, forcing those counties to farm out the inmate incarceration at costs that range from $60 to $85 a day per inmate.
Per person.
So that rate would well exceed the debt service on both the jail and the school project. We're talking about our current inmate count about the $3.6 million a year. Does that answer your question, Mr. Hughes?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
Is there any other questions?
Mr. Hughes.
Yes.
This is Ricky Hooper.
Yes, sir.
If I'm understanding correctly, if we do this and the wheel tax passes on this resolution, we just delay the school for 2 years. Is that what I'm hearing? Is that what I'm hearing?
Ask that question again, Mr. Hooper.
If we pass this resolution as you just worded it, we're basically delaying the school for at least 2 years to get a referendum. We go to a vote and do all that. You know it's going to go to a referendum. It's went to a referendum every time we've tried to pass it. So I don't think they're going to vote for it. So I don't want to delay funding.
Why would we delay funding? We're not going to delay it. Well, we're going to delay the time for the school for this referendum to go through for the wheel tax. That's the only time we're going to delay it.
If it goes to referendum, it's not going to pass. Historically, it has not passed.
30 days. 30 days is all I got. Woo. Josh. It is rough in Humphreys County North.
My lights just came on. Praise the Lord.
Is there any other questions?
Mr. Hooper, if it forced the referendum and it goes to a November ballot and it fails, the next time it could be considered is for the tax levy that would take effect with the 21-22 fiscal year budget.
So my question was, if it fails, we delay the school for basically 2 years.
12 months by my calculation.
Yes, 12 months. To the next budget. I think the people would go with it going with wheel tax. It's coming one way or the other. I think the people in this county would support it if it goes to the schools. I've been talking to a lot of people about it, and they say if it all goes to schools, they will support the wheel tax. And I don't think anybody would get a petition out. And one or two that I used to know would get out told me no, said they would support it.
I'm not going to vote for nothing that delays the school program. I'll tell you that right now.
We're not talking about delaying it. You know, we want it going just as quick as we can get it.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Chairman, this is Mr. Coleman again. I truly believe that this would. I'm not sure the referendum would pass. I can't support this amendment either. I think the best policy would be combine the wheel tax both with the entire building program of the jail and the school building program.
Mr. Wallace, anything else?
No, sir. There's a motion and a second on the floor, and if you deal with that, then we'll do what we need to after that.
Okay, would you read that motion one more time?
Yeah, the motion on the floor is to impose a $75 wheel tax, which will be used for school building programs, and oppose property tax equivalent as is necessary for the jail project, the correction officers, and the fire fund funding.
Okay. Before we vote, is there any other questions or concerns?
Mr. Hughes, this is Mr. Dillinger.
Yes, sir.
My question was on the wheel tax. Is that going to be for indefinite? Are we going to set a time limit on that? Is that an option, or what are we going to do with that on the time?
We've applied for a 40-year loan.
Very good.
So with that in consideration, Mr. Dillinger, I would take that there is no limit to it.
Yes, that's what I wanted to make sure. I figured that was the case, but it really wasn't spelled out. I'm a little slow, I guess.
Okay. I understand. Is there any other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Hurt here. So
Yes, sir.
the $75 wheel tax goes toward McEwen and Future, to Waverly and to New Johnsonville, to all the schools, basically all of it, as far as that's what that money's going to be appropriated for, correct?
That's the way I understand Mr. Hunt's motion.
Okay.
Is there any other questions or concerns? Ms. Wallace, can you hear her?
I can't hear her.
Was that somebody asking something?
It sounded like Ms. Phillips.
Wasn't me, I'm on mute.
Oh, okay.
It's background in somebody's connection.
Okay. If there's no more questions or concerns, roll call vote, Mr. Wallace.
Mr. Coleman.
No.
Mr. Daniel.
No.
Mr. Dillinger.
No.
Ms. Hampton.
Yes.
Mr. Hooper.
No.
Mr. Hughes.
No.
Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hunt? Mr. Hunt may have got cut off. I'll come back to him. Mr. Hurt.
Oh.
Mr. Mayberry.
No.
Ms. Phillips.
Yes.
Mr. Rochelle.
Yes.
Mr. Wagner.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Did I miss anybody?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Hunt.
Besides Mr. Hunt?
Jim Jared.
Mr. Jared, how do you vote?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Then that brings us back to square one. Is there any other motions?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Well, I think we need to get rid of this, indebtedness first, Mr. Rochelle.
Mr. Hughes, if I may.
Yes, sir.
If I may, in absence of any action to the contrary, I'll include in the budget property tax increases for the entire amount. We've applied for loans, and assuming they're approved by the USDA and by the county commission, we'll be obligated to fund that debt service, and by whatever revenue sources we have, and we can't afford it without some kind of action.
Mr. Wallace, it's Jim Jarrett. Can we amend this later for August?
We can amend the tax rate up to and including the August meeting of the county commission.
We could also include a wheel tax at that time if we want.
No, we couldn't get it on. We couldn't do it in time for it to be on a referendum in the November referendum. We could call for a special election to take place at whatever time the election commission can work that out.
Okay.
We need to deal with this tonight.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Daniel.
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yes, I would. I mean, if there's no question we've got to fund it, I make a motion. We just go ahead and do a property tax there. What'd you say inside 2.391?
2.3691.
Okay. And because we can deal with the wheel tax later, because if not, we don't do something, it's just going to defer us getting anything done and or schools. I'll make a motion to just go ahead and to fund it now as property tax increase.
And that's for the schools, the jail, corrections, and the fire, Mr. Daniel, is that correct?
That would be all three of them. Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Is there a second to that?
Second.
This is Mr. Coleman. I second.
Okay, Mr. Coleman. We've got a motion on the floor and a second. Mr. Wallace, you want to read the motion?
Yeah, the motion would be to increase the property tax levy for the coming fiscal year for the outside rate to 2.4528, the inside rate 2.3691, which will be equal to the amount necessary for funding the debt service on the school building program, the jail building program, 10 additional corrections officers, and an addition of 4 pennies to the outside rate for the fire fund.
Okay. Is there any questions? With none being heard, roll call, Mr. Wallace.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Mr. Daniel.
Yes.
Mr. Dillinger.
No.
Ms. Hampton.
No.
Mr. Hooper.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes.
No.
Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hurt. Mr. Hurt.
Yes. Sorry.
Mr. Jarrett.
Yes.
Mr. Mayberry.
Yes.
Ms. Phillips,
No.
Mr. Rochelle,
No.
Mr. Wagner,
No.
Mr. Whitfield.
No.
Motion is, the action is defeated, 7-6.
Okay. Do we want to do these one at a time then?
Perhaps, Mr. Hughes, you should take a vote on whether they wanted to move, if commissioners want to move forward definitively with these projects. If we move forward with them, we've got to pay for them.
Do we have a recommendation or a motion?
We need to make a decision on this. Because who knows what it's gonna cost. We have to send the prisoners out. Need the new school. We need to make a decision on this.
Mr. Wallace?
Yeah, yes?
If we were to move forward with a property tax increase tonight, with the forethought or the planning that we have a referendum at the next election that's regularly held to relieve some of the property tax issues, would that be possible?
Yes, sir, but we would need to put into place contingencies that allowed for the meeting of the debt service by imposing 100% of the burden on the property tax until such time as we know the result of the wheel tax adoption process.
Right.
Okay, John, this is John Hunt back with you.
Thank you, John. Your action was defeated. A subsequent action was defeated, which would have put it all on property tax. Now discussing alternatives. Mr. Wagner, you were about to make a motion?
I would make that a motion, yes, that we include it now as the property tax, and then we seek relief at the first property time that we can have a referendum to relieve part of that through a wheel tax.
Are you specifying which part to relieve the wheel tax?
That would be to relieve the school for the wheel tax, that the schools would receive all of the wheel tax monies from that. If not, it's going to continue as it would be a property tax. But I believe that the wheel tax would pass, and at that point.
Yeah, for clarification, the school would be the beneficiary, but the debt service would be made to fund capital projects.
Correct.
So if I can summarize, make an attempt at summarizing for you, Mr. Wagner, you propose we adopt a wheel tax equal to the total amount necessary for the debt service, the correction officers, and the fire fund, property tax, and then also adopt a wheel tax in the amount necessary, which would be somewhere around $54 at current numbers. I'd have to check. Necessary for the debt service to the school building program.
At such a time that we could do that, yes, that the election could be held. But in the meantime, now it is funded through the property tax. That way we can move forward with the projects and that we don't lose the funding that we have now.
I don't get this. I really don't get this.
That was basically the same motion I'd made, Kate.
Except that it would be 18 cents of the property tax would be reversed in August if the wheel tax moves forward without referendum. And if it did move through referendum and was approved by the voters, then it would take effect the following year, at which time the property tax would roll back 18 cents.
Okay.
Does that help,
Gotcha.
Kay?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay. Yeah, that helps. Jesse, thanks.
Mr. Hughes, you have a motion.
We've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, okay.
Mr.
Who made the second?
Wagner, that was Mr. Hooper, was it not?
Yeah, I made it, and but somebody else did too.
Well,
Daniel made it, but somebody else was bleeding in too.
Mr. Wallace, what happens if the wheel tax doesn't pass? It all stays on property tax, correct?
That's correct.
Oh, Lord.
Is there somebody on? Mr. Wallace, you want to read that motion and before we vote?
Yes, sir. The motion on the floor is the adoption of a property tax $0.48 to the 52 cents to the outside, 48 cents to the inside rate, which would be amended in the August meeting of the county commission if there's no challenge to by referendum to the adoption of a wheel tax in the amount of, let's say, $55.
Would 55 be enough, Mr. Wallace?
Yes, sir.
Is there any?
Yeah,
yes,
go
sir.
ahead. I was just going to say that the current count is 16,777 applicable vehicles. That number could be reduced when people start having to pay a $55 wheel tax. So I feel like we've got to meet that debt service. Adding a couple of dollars on that would ensure that probably. So that's the reason for my recommendation of $55 wheel tax, which, if adopted, would roll back that property tax for the school building program.
Is there any concerns or questions? Does everybody understand this motion? Mr. Wallace?
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Daniel?
Yes.
Mr. Dillinger?
No.
Ms. Hampton?
No.
Mr. Hooper?
Yes.
Mr. Hughes?
No.
Mr. Hunt? Mr. Hunt? Mr. Hunt, are you still on the line? I'll come back to Mr. Hunt. Mr. Hurt?
Yes.
Mr. Jarrett?
Yes.
Mr. Mayberry?
Yes.
Ms. Phillips?
No.
Mr. Rochelle?
Oh, no.
Mr. Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield?
No.
Now 7-6 in favor, and Mr. Hunt's vote. Mr. Hunt, are you back on the line?
I'll get him back on there, Mr. Wallace.
Hello?
John,
Yeah.
we have Jesse, take it over.
Lightning hit me out here.
Oh,
Look, Mr. Hunt, we have a motion on the floor. We have a motion on the floor that would adopt a property tax equal to the amount necessary for funding both projects, but also adopts a $55 wheel tax that, if passes through the challenge of referendum, would cause a rolling back of that property tax before it can be applied in October. So we'd roll it back in August if the wheel tax isn't challenged. Okay. And we're in the process of taking a vote. Yes vote moves forward. A no vote stops.
Yes.
Stops it. Your vote is yes.
Yes.
Mr. Hughes, that's 8-6 in favor.
Okay. Is that a clear enough majority?
Yes.
Okay. With that said, we're looking at a property tax increase of, did you say 50 cents inside, Mr. Wallace? Or was that 50 cent outside?
50, roughly 50 cents outside, 48 cents inside.
Okay.
Which, if the wheel tax goes forward, 18 cents will roll off of each. 38. No, 40. No, not 52. 42. 42 outside, 38 inside. 12, 30, 8. So I'm sorry.
Okay.
38 cents inside, 42 cents outside.
Okay. Is there anything else of new business that we need to discuss?
Mr. Hunt, Mr. Hughes?
Yes, sir.
The clarification of the property tax, does anybody wish to change their vote? Can you ask that question, please?
Yes. With the ramifications of the wheel tax outside or the sales tax outside and the property tax inside, is there anybody that wants to change their vote? Right now we have 8 votes yes and 6 votes no. With that said, is there anything else we need to discuss tonight? If not, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you do.
Thank you, Mr. Rochelle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Y'all have a good night. Thank you.